You guys, it's so disgustingly humid out. Why did I decide to film outside? Okay, so today's a little bit of a different video because one, we're outside. Two, we're just gonna talk. We're gonna discuss what inspired me to write Meet Me at the Summit, which releases at the end of this month. So please pre-order it now. You can pre-order the paperback, you can pre-order the ebook. When you pre-order the paperback or ebook, you can fill out the form, which is linked down below, to get free goodies mailed to you as my thank you for pre-ordering. Or you can pre-order the book adventure box, which allows you to read the book and also open gifts at the same time that have to do with the story. So, let's just jump into it. Oh, and I'm outside because the book is very outdoorsy, so this only felt appropriate. So the reasoning behind why I wrote Meet Me at the Summit is probably not what you guys expect. I think I've hinted at it and like slightly a little bit, but today you guys will get the full story, or at least as much of the story as I feel comfortable sharing. So, back at the beginning of 2020, I was writing a completely different story. I was writing basically a murder mystery. I've always been into reading those sort of stories. I've always been into watching documentaries like that. So I wrote my own story. I had like this really cool concept that I'm still not going to tell you guys about in case I do go back into it someday. But I was working on what you guys knew it as, Sick and Twisted. That's how I referred to it as. It's the working title / maybe the final title. I don't really remember what happened. But I referred to it as Sick and Twisted. I wrote the first draft. I had to rewrite the third act a couple times. And basically what happened was somewhere in the spring, I think it was, there was a murder in my own town, and this murder turned into also like a break-in, a hostage situation, a kidnapping, a second murder, and all of this like happened like really basically my backyard. It was a very scary situation, and at the time, I wasn't scared. It wasn't until after the guy was captured and brought into custody that like the reality of the situation dawned on me, and then that's when my anxiety got really bad. That's actually why we got a dog, because I didn't feel safe at home anymore. Then we got like a security system, all this stuff, just in reaction to that one thing happening. And I never really talked about it here on YouTube. I mentioned it like once on Instagram, but I had a hard time talking to it, and I like my privacy. And by opening up about that, I knew people would like start searching for it online and want to read articles and blah blah blah, and I just wanted my privacy. And I also know other victims of this situation wanted their privacy, and the news didn't necessarily always give them their privacy, even though they asked for like their privacy, and it made me very angry. Anywho, so all of that happened, and suddenly this murder mystery that I was writing was no longer fun to write, because when you face it in reality and you see it firsthand and you witness that, it's not great. So I stopped writing it for a very long time, and I just wanted to write a story that made me happy. And I kind of like had in the back of my head like what that story would be, but I'm a very stubborn person. I don't like to put stories down and abandon them. The final straw happened when I went hiking and had a panic attack, and it was basically my lowest point, we'll put it that way. For those of you who don't know, I'm currently hiking the New Hampshire 4,000 footer list. It's when you hike all 48 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. I am on 42, I think, right now. Sorry, there's bugs. I'm on 42 out of 48, so I'm almost finished the list, and my plan was I was supposed to finish it last year, and basically I put so much pressure on myself, and I was so stressed out by everything, including the thing I just mentioned. I was so stressed out by all of that it just made it that one day I went on a backpacking trip, and I just had a panic attack in the middle of a backpacking trip. It was supposed to be a 3-day backpacking trip, and we were doing this giant loop, and unfortunately for me, by the time I got to the top of the first mountain of the day, I could feel just like anxiety kind of in the back of my mind. It was there, but I was like, I'm just gonna ignore it. And then by the time I got to the second mountain of the day, it was impossible to ignore, and that's when I had to let my hiking partner know, like, I don't feel good, this isn't gonna work, we need to turn down when we get the chance. So then by the time we got to the 4th or 5th mountain of the day, that's when we had arranged plans to have someone drive us back to our car. We had to hike down the mountain, and also unfortunately is hiking down the mountain, we ran into a lot of people who weren't prepared to hike in the dark because by that time the sun was setting, and we were just running into people who didn't have headlamps for hiking, and they just had a far way to go to walk in the woods to get back to the parking lot. And normally I would stick with those people and walk them out myself to make sure they got to safety, but I was just such a mess. I was basically like, bye, good luck, I need to take care of myself. And what makes me extra sad but also like thankful in a weird way is that my hiking partner is a photographer, and she took so many photos that day, and they are all so good, and there's a few of me, but in almost like every single photo, as the sun is setting, I was so anxious that I was just constantly like, I was looking at my watch, how many miles in are we, how much time do we have before the sun sets, how much is left to the trail, like just constantly looking at my watch because I could not chill. I was just a wreck. Like as soon as I realized like how bad my anxiety was, and I was just borderline trying not to cry on the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. And then as we were leaving and we were almost to the parking lot, we ran into two parents who asked us if we had seen his son, who was 12 years old. And of course we said, no, we haven't seen your son. And turns out that they had been letting their son hike ahead of him, and he was supposed to meet him at a specific spot, and when they got to that spot, he wasn't there. And by that time, it was like 9:30 at night. And so after this long day of hiking for like 16 miles with a huge backpack and fighting like an anxiety attack for God knows how long, we get to the parking lot, and there's flashing lights of cops, and there's a search team looking for this little boy, and it just felt like the worst hiking day ever. And good news, the little boy was found. He took a wrong turn and started hiking back up the mountain instead of waiting at the bottom. He was found basically like 5 or 10 minutes after we had left, but it was a slap of reality where all of a sudden this thing that I love to do now suddenly felt extremely dangerous, and I didn't know what to do with myself because of it. And stupidly of me, instead of trying to give myself some mental time and space to heal from that, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go hiking next week. We're gonna get over this anxiety. And I just kept having panic attacks. Like I had a panic attack like the night before hiking. I was sobbing in bed, and then I went and still went hiking the next day, even though I spent all night sobbing. And then the next day I just again had a panic attack, except this time I was alone in the woods because I was hiking solo. And so yeah, this huge fear and anxiety formed for hiking that had never been there before, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I just tried to deal with it by writing a book about it. And I say that was my lowest point because suddenly it became hiking, which was a huge outlet and de-stressor for me, now became a stressor, where even over a year from now, I still struggle with it, where I start to have panic attacks while I'm hiking on the trail. And it's just, I'm a very anxious person when I hike. I'm anxious the night before, I'm anxious on the trail if I'm like going slower than I want to be, or if I have to keep stopping. I'm just a very anxious person now. And it's frustrating because before I had my first panic attack while hiking, it used to be my favorite thing in the world. It used to be what I would do to get away from the stress, and now suddenly it was like I was walking directly into it. And it's something I'm still getting used to. I was doing really great until a couple weeks ago when my cat, Mr. Moon, just unexpectedly died, like within the span of 12 hours, just went really downhill really fast. And I was supposed to go hiking 2 days later, and I was just a wreck again. And because I had a sad thing plus something that sometimes makes me anxious back to back, it felt like I was starting off at square one again. Basically, the point I'm trying to get at is I wrote Meet Me at the Summit for myself. I wrote it because I wanted to write a story about someone who loves hiking and someone who's also struggling with something. So in Meet Me at the Summit, Marley is dealing with the grief of losing her parents and trying to move on. But for me, I was dealing with, I don't even know how to put it. I was trying to figure out how to imagine myself hiking again and loving it without feeling so anxious. And honestly, it really helped me a lot. So this story is near and dear to my heart, and I know I feel like as I say it, I'm like, this doesn't make sense, but this is what inspired the story. Like, I had a panic attack while I was hiking, and suddenly this thing I love to do, I no longer, I didn't want to do it anymore, and it felt like I had lost a part of myself. And that's kind of what I tried to create through Marley, who she loves to hike, and she would go hiking with her dad, and then her dad dies, and she lost a part of herself when he died because now she doesn't want to go hiking because her dad's gone. So what's the point if she's just doing it by herself? So that's really the core of where the story came from. And then the rest of it is just, I was so freaking stressed all last year that I just wanted to write about something that made me happy. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that there. That's why I wrote this book. It was just an outlet for me. It was a little bit of therapy as well. And I like to see it as, if I focus solely on what story I wanted to read and what story would make me the most happy, then odds are there would be many other people who would feel the same way. And I'm happy to say so far that yes, there are people who are absolutely falling in love with this book because there's already like a few reviews out and about. So again, please pre-order this book. A lot of love has gone into this book. This is my favorite story yet because in the weirdest way possible, it's the most personal yet. I see so much of myself in my main character Marley, maybe more so than I'm comfortable with, but I'll let you guys decide what you think when you read it when it comes out August 31st. Otherwise, that is it for today's video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe.